Chapter 11c, continuing from Yuddhananta Parva, talks on the dharma of a king. Yudhishthira asked, "Tell me, what is the source of sin? Where does it proceed from, and what is the foundation on which it is built?" Bheeshma replied, "Covetousness is the one root of all sin. It destroys all merit and all goodness. From it proceeds the river of sin. It is from this single source that many of the sins flow. Covetousness is the eternal spring of cunningness and hypocrisy. Wrath is born of covetousness. Lust is born of covetousness, and several of the terrible maladies of the mind spring from covetousness. Loss of judgment, deception, pride, arrogance, malice, vindictiveness, shamelessness, loss of virtue, anxiety, and infamy. These are some of the many children of covetousness. Let me recount to you the names of some more of them: miserliness, cupidity, desire for every kind of improper behavior, pride of birth, pride of learning, pride of beauty, pride of wealth, pitilessness, malevolence, insincerity, appropriation of another's wealth, harshness of speech, talking ill of others, gluttony, a love of falsehood, and a love of every kind of evil act. In life, no man has ever been able to give up covetousness. Life may decay, but this will never wane in its power. Even men of great learning, whose minds are the very treasury of all the scriptures, who have the intelligence to clear all the many doubts of others, are found to be incompetent to manage their own affairs. They are spineless and weak, and it is because they are slaves of this dread disease, covetousness. Yudhishthira asked, "Tell me about ignorance." Bhishma replied, "Ignorance, my child, again has its origin in this covetousness. As covetousness grows, ignorance grows with it. The root of covetousness is but loss of clear thinking, loss of judgment, and so ignorance is an inseparable companion of covetousness." Yudhishthira asked, "What are the duties which should be preferred to all others?" Bhishma replied, "The highest duty is self-restraint. Just as the great sin covetousness leads to all sins, self-restraint leads a man to the highest glory. It has a number of good qualities born of it: forgiveness, patience, abstaining from injuring others, impartiality, truth, sincerity, modesty, steadiness, liberty, freedom from wrath, contentment, sweetness of speech, benevolence, freedom from malice. A man who is self-restrained will never be a slave to the attachments of the earth. He attains emancipation. He is almost on the threshold of it when he becomes self-restrained." Yudhishthira asked, "I desire to hear about truth." Bhishma replies, "Truth is the duty of every human being. It is an eternal duty. Truth is the highest refuge. Truth is the greatest penance. Truth is the highest yoga, and truth is the eternal Brahman. It is the sacrifice which is greater than all other sacrifices. All the three worlds rest on truth and nothing else. Truth is of 13 kinds: impartiality, self-control, forgiveness, modesty, endurance, goodness, renunciation, contemplation, dignity, fortitude, compassion, and abstinence from injury. All these are aspects of truth. Truth is immutable, eternal, unchangeable." Yudhishthira asks, "What is that good thing which one should strive for?" Bhishma replies, "This world is ever threatened by death. The nights which come and go do but lessen the span of one's life. Death waits for no man. It is nearing every creature every moment. Its progress is imperceptible, but it is ever steady. With the passing of each day, man's life is shortened. Death comes before man's desires have been fulfilled. When he is busy plucking the flowers, death snatches a man away like a beast of prey carrying away a ram. What you have planned to do tomorrow must be done today. What you have planned to do in the afternoon must be done in the forenoon. Death is ruthless. It will never wait and see if all your acts have been carried out. Man should hurry and practice virtue in the prime of life. Life is so uncertain and only death is certain. It may come now or it may come years later. The readiness is important. Virtue will grant you fame in this world and happiness in the next. Man is plagued with 1,000 desires in the world. He becomes attached to many things and many people. His work, his lands, his children, his home, all these have woven a web of attachment from which he is torn away by death. Nothing can resist the force of this web of attachment except truth. Knowledge of the true values of things makes a man realize the transitoriness of things of the world, and to such a man, death has no terrors. Truth is immortality. In the same body can be found the germs of death as well as immortality. It is all in your hands whether you nurture the one or the other. Earthly bondages are so easily formed, it is easy for anyone to nurture the plant of attachment, which is but another name for death. The wise man, however, restrains his senses. He rises above the grasping hands of desire and wrath. He will know how to treat pleasure and pain alike. Tranquility becomes his for the asking, and he attains immortality. His words, his thoughts, his renunciation, and his yoga rest on the eternal, the Brahman, and he escapes death. The eye of knowledge is the keenest eye. Truth is the greatest penance. Attachment is the most terrible of all sorrows. Renunciation is the source of greatest happiness. I repeat, attachment is the most terrible of all sorrows. Renunciation is the source of the great happiness. We are born from Brahman through Brahman. Devoting oneself to Brahman, one can return to Brahman. Seek the self which is concealed in a cave. Yudhishthira asked, describe to me the man who is dear to all, who is said to be perfectly accomplished, to be endowed with all the merits that the world speaks about. Bheeshma replied, such a man as you describe will be learned. He will be good and pious. His blood will never get heated by pride, discontent, and wrath will not be found in him. His senses will never lead him astray, and he will always have peace born of the realization of the supreme truth. Yudhishthira asks, what makes a man a sinner and what makes him virtuous? What helps him to achieve renunciation? How does he attain emancipation? Bheeshma replied, desire is responsible for making a man a sinner. When it sees an object of the sense, desire seeks it. For the sake of getting what he wants, man begins to strive for it. The objects of the senses appear so agreeable that man tries his best to get them. Attachment follows in the wake of desire. Immediately follow aversion, greed, and error of judgment. The mind becomes confused, clouded, and man does not anymore follow the path of virtue. Assuming a virtue which he does not possess is now the policy of the man, and he becomes a hypocrite. Acquiring wealth with the help of hypocrisy is easy for a man who has begun the downward path to sin. In spite of the advice of well-wishers and elders, man begins to act in a sinful manner. There is no more hope of salvation for a confirmed sinner like the man just described. The man who is righteous seeks the good of others, and so he wins good for himself. He is wise and knows how to avoid the pitfalls called the senses. He is wise as to the real nature of happiness and sorrow. Man attains mastery over the senses, and that is called virtue. But still he is discontented. He will not rest until he has mastered the art of renunciation. Knowledge helps him to be free of desire. Finally, realizing that the world is but a passing pageant, that it will be destroyed any time, he tries to cast off virtue with its reward in the form of heaven and happiness, and tries to attain emancipation. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.